Story 1. Sometimes when I sit down on the toilet and start urinating, the force of the stream causes my penis to angle horizontally, directing urine into the small gap between the toilet seat and the bowl. Cleaning up is annoying because I have to spray and wipe everything all the way around the toilet. Story 2. The prostate is a complex organ that can cause pain felt in other areas of the body. When there is something wrong with the prostate, the pain is not usually felt directly in the prostate but elsewhere. Prostatitis is an inflammation of the prostate caused by many possible factors, including tension, anxiety, and bacterial infections, which are not necessarily related to hygiene. Prostate cancer affects 1 in 8 men. The prostate grows with age, leading to frequent urination. At a certain age, men often discuss how often they wake up at night to urinate. Testicular torsion is sometimes joked about but is a very serious condition. It occurs when a testicle twists, causing severe pain that often leads to fainting. Testicular torsion can happen suddenly, even during sleep. Story 3. Sitting on a public toilet with a shallower bowl than usual, I did not notice until the cold, dirty porcelain touched my skin. Story 4. Waking up in the middle of the night because you have to urinate but you have a large erection. Story 5. Less fashion options. Women have many accessories and different types of clothing and jewelry available. In comparison, men have much less styling potential. Story 6. Women assume something is wrong with you if you are single. I am not abusive or toxic. I just have bad luck with dating. Story 7. I think the idea that our value is derived primarily from our successes and accomplishments, not just from who we are as human beings, is mistaken. Men are in constant competition with each other. Can be depressing and overwhelming. Story 8. Always being perceived as a threat, even when you are just walking along a sidewalk minding your own business. I understand, some men give us a bad name, but most of us are far more interested in your dog than in you. Story 9. If you are not a people person who can make friends anywhere, then no one cares about you after reaching adulthood. Story 10. Single adult males can go days, weeks, months, years, or longer without physical human contact. Story 11. Men do not have as many openly supportive emotional groups. It is hard to find a group for male abuse survivors or communities where men who have experienced trauma can share their experiences with others who have gone through the same thing. It is very sad because many men would benefit if the social expectations of having to hold in emotions about painful experiences were removed. Story 12. The amount of loneliness and isolation we can feel even if we have a family is significant. It is sometimes hard to make new male friends, but once I did, my mental health steadily improved. Men need male friends. Story 13. When you have problems, other men tell you to man up because it is part of life, and your girlfriends will tell you that women have it worse, so you stop whining. Story 14. I grew up in a family of girls. I rarely saw my father, and he was often labeled a threat by my mother. This caused a change in my thinking. I am much more comfortable talking to women as friends than to men my age. However, being tall and alternative, many people see me and immediately assume that I will harm or try to assault them. In reality, all I want to do is talk about the kind of music I listen to. Story 15. Having the responsibility of approaching women when there is a 95% probability for most of us most of the time that it will result in rejection. Story 16. Double standards exist for conduct in relationships. Men regularly experience verbal or physical abuse, and it is often not seen as a big deal. However, if the roles were reversed, everyone would rightfully recognize it as abuse. Story 17. Limited work and dress clothes options. Suit and tie, dress slacks and blazer, dress shoes, button-down shirt. There is some flexibility in more casual offices. However, dress clothes and professional clothing are often heavy and may require wearing undershirts to prevent sweating through the dress shirt, or other layering such as undershirt, dress shirt, jacket, and a cinched neck with tie. It is not uncommon to see women in outfits where their arms are exposed, including exposed armpits, flowy fabrics, or dresses and skirts with movement, and open collars or exposed necklines. Story 18. Having to constantly put on a mask of being okay even when things are definitely not okay. Story 19. When the baby in your hand searches for breast milk and you don't have any, or when you are sitting on your left testicle and crushing it, and nobody knows why your eyes are moist. Story 20. The nerve. There is an assumption that because I am a man, I can manage things. What if I cannot? I totally can. Story 21. The lack of commitment to coming together to protect each other is concerning. The same people who complain about women ignoring male victims of sexual assault often insult victims who come forward with comments like, "You probably enjoyed it?" or "How are you so weak?" As a man, if anything happened to me, I would feel much more comfortable telling a woman than a man. Story 22. That society sees you as wholly disposable and discards you the moment they no longer have a use for you. How many homeless men do you drive or walk past without giving them a second thought? Story 23. I am 42 years old and work for a bank. I want to bleach my hair and do a nice platinum or similar color that is not crazy, but it might be considered a midlife crisis or even totally inappropriate. I recently got a gravel bike to increase my physical activity. No, it is a midlife crisis according to everyone. Story 24. I am 5 feet 11 inches tall, weigh 215 pounds, and am black. If I see a woman walking towards me on the street, or if I am walking towards a woman on the street, I cross the street or walk in the street, especially if I am with my dog or at night. I do not want to make any random person uncomfortable with my presence. I do not consider it a reflection on me, but I am aware of how it may appear. Story 25. Lack of emotional outlets and being expected to man up instead of being vulnerable. Story 26. Your value in most relationships is centered around what you can contribute or produce. Story 27. I have been suffering from many things lately, something I have not told my family. One day, I started to cry in front of my mother about my job in life. She told me that men do not cry, son. I know she loves me a lot, but sometimes it is hard to be a man. Story 28. The constant thought that if one thing goes wrong, you can lose everything faster than you gained it. Story 29. Given that many answers mention variations of balls, you should consider demanding better underwear. Story 30. I'd say emotional invisibility. Society expects men to just deal with it and not talk about feelings. Even when something hits hard, you're supposed to shrug it off. It's lonely and exhausting. Story 31. People assume that everything nice you do for women is because you are sexually attracted. Story 32. To be the person who needs to show empathy but never receives empathy when needed. Story 33. Being called short when you are literally the tallest person she knows. Story 34. Not receiving many compliments, and if I do, they often feel insincere. Story 35. I'm not a man, but I was having a conversation with my coworker and friend about our mental health struggles. I asked him if he had thought about going to therapy. He jokingly told me, "Men don't do that." But I feel there was a lot of truth in that statement. Men are often too ashamed to ask for help. You are not weak for struggling, especially with the world being the way it is these days. It made me a little sad to hear him say that so casually. Story 36. Needing to have a bowel movement while still experiencing morning erection. Story 37. Being stuck in a mundane job with the overwhelming responsibility of providing for a family, all while wishing to be called to fight in a foreign war just to give meaning to your existence. Story 38. In my opinion, listening to the media, a guy should be 6 feet tall, have a six-pack, and earn a six-figure income. I do not fit any of that, but I have a little sister who tells me I could make a girl happy. It does not make sense. Story 39. He is X. He will figure it out. Thank you. I will because I have to. Some support would still be nice instead of justifying poor behavior like this. Story 40. A small male genital organ is generally not preferred by women, regardless of a person's personality or qualities. Story 41. I think one of the most underrated struggles is how men build friendships compared to women. I am a 6'3" athletic, extroverted man who loves meeting and talking to new people. However, I have noticed since I was a teenager that most men stick with the same few friends they had since high school or keep friendships at a surface level indefinitely. Meanwhile, women seem to be able to form deep, meaningful connections even with people they have just met. Story 42. Getting your penis entangled in your underwear in public without appearing inappropriate. Story 43. Being lashed out at, verbally abused, slapped, and randomly groped by girls are all socially acceptable. Story 44. The ubiquity of rejection. We men are rejected by women who do not find us attractive. Naturally, that is fair. We are also rejected by women who, it turns out, did actually find us attractive after all. We can be rejected by women who asked for a certain kind of treatment and, when we gave it to them, rejected us. We can even be preemptively rejected by women in certain situations where they want to make it clear they are not interested in advance of any interest whatsoever being shown. I have seen women's magazines where rejection is turned into a sassy game. If a man tries to break the ice using certain methods, then there is a list of perfect sassy replies. There is no equivalent in men's magazines for that sort of thing. Women also keep saying they want equality, but if you genuinely treat women as equals, there are very few faster ways to get rejected. And then, after a lifetime of men being honed for rejection and treated as expendable from about high school onwards, women overwhelmingly insist that they want the man to make the first move. Story 45. Not being able to show my anus to the world for money. Story 46. Around 40, your testicles start becoming a real liability as a side sleeper or someone who tosses and turns all night. Story 47. Hiding erections, but virtually every woman on the planet assumes that having an erection means being sexually aroused. I remember my parents waking me up in high school while I was sleeping in my boxers. I had to wait for them to leave the room before moving the covers. Unfortunately, this led to many arguments because they thought I was trying to get back to sleep. I can't say I was never trying to get back to sleep, but it is definitely true that I didn't want them to see me tenting. Story 48. Having unrealistic expectations placed upon us, it is far easier, in terms of finding life partners and the judgments of society, to be a weak woman than a weak or unsuccessful man. There is a reason suicide rates are significantly higher for men. This is not to say the above is the only reason, but it is relevant. Story 49. Using a urinal and it splashing on your legs, pants, or shorts is unpleasant. I try to avoid urinals. Story 50. Being transgender is great sometimes because I have experiences from both worlds, as well as my own unique experience due to the existence of people who are prejudiced against transgender individuals. People do not support each other or say kind things like, "That was amazing to figure out and be okay with." Story 51. I'll do one that is not related to genitalia. Walking behind a woman to get to where you are going. You know she is wondering if you are following her on purpose, and there is no good way to let her know you are not following her. To be fair, the women have it much worse in this scenario, trying to figure out if they are being followed. But the experience is definitely unique for both genders. Story 52. Women often say they have to bear the mental load of a relationship. We agree, but we bear the load of emotional suppression. Some of you will say, "We want you to be vulnerable," but you do not. Most men know the feeling of finally being able to speak about your problems, only to have that conversation turned around, to comfort you or for you to use it against us. We have to stay quiet, despite you believing you are a good shoulder, a haven, a reprieve. The moment you shut us down and make us apologize for how we feel, you will never have us open again. We will manage the pain on our own instead of adding the weight of your feelings. Story 53. We guys don't really get hints when girls flirt with us. We might stand there wondering if they are being really nice or flirtatious, but we never pursue it. Often, we just don't pick up on the flirting and remain oblivious. Another point is that when we interact with women 9 times out of 10, we are just being nice and friendly. We do not intend to pursue a romantic or physical relationship. Even if we are flirting, we make it obvious. Story 54. Peeling your sock off your leg every 5 minutes in summer is worse if you shave. Story 55. Men, on average, receive a 63% longer jail sentence because they are perceived as dangerous and the judges are biased. Story 56. During a breakup, even if she is the problem, people tend to support her, and you are left dealing with the trauma alone. Story 57. Initiating interactions with women and coping with rejection. Story 58. I do not know. I have been sitting all day, smoking marijuana and watching television. Story 59. Being expected to make the first move and always lead in today's world is challenging. I don't know what I am doing any more than anyone else, yet now I have to make decisions for everyone. Also, making friends if you are not a bro is difficult. Story 60. General expectation of responsibility and accountability. It is seldom mentioned, almost never discussed, but I notice it all the time, and it is astonishing how much women cannot care and get away with it, or delegate it to the nearest man to take care of. This holds true as a general baseline attitude with which one faces the world, not necessarily in specific instances. It shows both in dealing with situations and emotions. I think it is the other side of the double-edged sword, where many things women do and say are not taken as seriously as a man would be if he were to say or do the exact same thing. Story 61. Not to repeat myself, but being expected to initiate everything in terms of dating is a serious struggle, especially for introverted men. Story 62. Walking home from a 13-hour shift and then seeing a woman walking slower than a sloth on heroin, perceiving you as some sort of mass-murdering rapist because you happen to be walking the same way home and walking quickly, because I want to get home and relax, makes you uncomfortable. You either have to find somewhere to sit down and let her pass or find a different route home, which takes an extra 40 minutes. Recently, I have started not caring and wait until I get close, then politely say, "Excuse me, do you mind if I just jump ahead?" The look of confusion when they realize I am not there to harm them and just want to go home is always quite something. I know it seems heartless, but honestly, if you have been in a kitchen for that long, I really do not care about your feelings. I simply want to go home. The media has made everyone think the worst of everybody. Story 63. Not being able to take a young child, whether their own or a nephew or niece, to the park or many other places while alone. Not being able to hang out at a park alone. Story 64. Crossing your legs and crushing your testicles. Story 65. The lack of care for men's well-being is often overlooked and underrated, especially because much of it is performative. I recently became very ill and was diagnosed with a lifelong chronic illness. The disgust shown toward me for being unable to work for a few months while I managed my condition was shocking. I used to believe this was not a real phenomenon, that it was exaggerated or that society had moved past it. However, society does not care about men if they are not perceived as useful. Story 66. If you do not make enough money to support a family on your own, you are seen as almost worthless by the vast majority of the dating pool. If you work with children, people assume you are some kind of creep. If you bring up problems you are having, you are either ignored or told to get over it. In general, men are judged by what they can give other people materially. Story 67. I am going to discuss how common and acceptable it is to make fun of serious issues. Conditions like hair loss, erectile dysfunction, and unemployment are serious matters that can affect a person's physical and mental health, but they are often treated as punchlines worthy of ridicule. Story 68. Quiet desperation leading to depression and ultimately to suicide, caused by being shamed for expressing any feelings to the opposite sex. Story 69. My dad once mentioned that he and many men he knows and his friends with have dream wedding ideas. However, since the day is considered to be about the bride, they rarely get to share them. When they do, they are often told to let her handle everything. I believe it is a shame that men feel they cannot have input on a day that is special and should be about both the bride and groom, simply because traditionally only the bride is seen as caring. Story 70. People expect you not to cry. If you cry, it means you are weak. I actually struggle with this sometimes, to be honest. Story 71. For boys growing up in left-leaning circles, the cultural consensus is that masculinity either does not exist or is inherently toxic. Story 72. If you like feminine things, you may be labeled as gay by others or assumed to be doing those things to be close to girls, which can be seen as creepy. I like to dance, have my nails trimmed, attend Zumba classes, do yoga and stretching classes, go to coffee shops, and talk for hours about your day, week, and feelings. It is rare to see men in those environments, and when you do, they often leave after a few days because they feel pressured by the number of women in those spaces and worry they may be perceived as creeps. I won't deny that some people misuse those spaces to objectify others or make inappropriate comments. Sometimes it feels lonely to be the only man in those spaces. I don't know much about typical men's interests like cars, bikes, or sports, which makes it difficult for me to form male friendships and easier to connect with female friends. So, I guess I need to get out of my comfort zone. Story 73. I don't feel like I am desired or worthy of being cherished like women are. You see so much about how a man should treat his female partner, but nothing about the reverse. Story 74. Listen to transgender men's experiences. They make it sound like being a man is terrible, being treated like a monster when I began to pass. Like, it is not that bad, right? Story 75. No one really thinks about us until they need something. Story 76. Toilet water and toilet bowls are the coldest and most unsanitary surfaces, but you still need to sit down for half of your business. Someone else stole the balls once. Story 77. To be successful or wealthy, societies expect men to achieve more success than women. Story 78. Knowing that you have to make the move if you want it to go from platonic to romantic and all the risk that entails. Story 79. I don't know if it's underrated, but no one ever tells you good job, well done, you look good, or I'm proud of you. Maybe as a kid if you had a good home, but not after the age of 20. Story 80. Being mocked for liking things. Is it somehow more manly to be void of interests, desires, preferences, and hobbies? Story 81. I am just trying to get somewhere. I have no interest in you. I am not trying to scare you. I am just trying to move. It might be because I am autistic that I cannot understand the idea of walk this way and that way around a lady, so you do not scare her because you are a guy. I just have to walk. Story 82. I do not like the topic of bear over a man. I was treated as if I were about to commit a crime for parking downtown and asking a woman if this parking is free during these hours. Women, please stop projecting your fears onto regular interactions. Your mental health is not your fault, but it is your responsibility. Story 83. In the United States, infant genital mutilation occurs without support and involves constant gaslighting from medical professionals. Story 84. Providing for my family is my duty, and frankly, I am tired. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.